Greetings everyone. I hope you found as much valuable loot as I did, because we have a lot of upgrades coming up and we need a bunch of divine orbs. I continue my journey and I'll start with shopping and updating my gear. Buying an extra large cluster, just like I bought in the last video. There we go. I also need 2 jewels with life and chaos damage over time multiplier. On a side note, corrupted blood is a big problem for this build, and you might want to consider buying a jewel with corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. If you are on a tight budget, go buy the cheapest one, but if you are a lucky goblin loot hunter, go buy one with useful stats. Inspired learning or a headhunter for the poor. But maybe it is more correct to say a headhunter for the middle class. Very good jewel, so buy it. But to use it, we need to make a small res pack. Something like this. I do not like my amulet and I want to replace it. Ideally, we need Eyes of the Great Wolf Talisman with at least 15% increased quantity of items found. But it costs a lot and does not give us anything except an additional 5 quantity, and it makes the process of equipping the character a lot harder. As a cheap alternative, you can consider the ascetic, but it's even worse, so I decided to make the amulet myself. For that we need 1 amulet with Shaper Influence and increased quantity of items found, and 1 amulet with Hunter Influence and Chaos Damage over time multiplier. Use Awakener's Orb because they're relatively cheap in this league, and pray to the gods to get a good amulet. Most importantly, don't forget that the amulet should have exactly 1 attribute with Shaper and Hunter Influence. Overall, we got a nice amulet that gives the needed attributes, increased quantity of items found, damage, and some life. I got negative chaos residential now, but I'll deal with that later. As for the anointments, to be honest, I have not decided what is better and decided to stop at acrimony because it gives the most damage and is not too expensive. I also decided to change my belt to something like this because extra movement speed is always nice. Of course we lost our rampage, but that's okay, because here is an axe, which will be very useful for us. An old and good weapon swap for rampage. The main thing is not to forget about it. And the new boots that I showed in the last video, because we need more speed. However, these boots can be expensive, so it's an optional upgrade and I personally wouldn't buy them. And finally, 6 links for toxic rain totems. If you don't have a lot of currency, you can easily skip this step. Just as you can see for yourself, I have a lot of fusing orbs, and so I decided to spend them. Ah yes, the Uber Lab. With this thrill of the hunt, I completely forgot about it. Those last ascendancy points are a nice way to increase our damage. So that's it. My character is ready for another series of map runs and some lucky drop. For starters, I decided to gather some more stats on Scuffed Magic Find and ran another 100 tier 11 maps.
Still sane, Exile.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm definitely not talking to myself, and thank you for asking. So, I decided to run 100 more maps, using pretty much the same strategy one used in the last video. But in addition, I decided to add an abyss on the map device. Also, instead of the stuffy Crimson Temple, I went out into the fresh, clean air of the cemetery. And that's what I got. First of all, I want to note that the build has become much better. We have more damage and more speed, and it really feels good and makes the magic find process faster and more comfortable. Also, Inspired Learning is a nice addition to the build, and its effect you will feel right away. It's not Headhunter, but it's a good way to get started, and I would recommend it as a priority buy. What a pathetic loot goblin. Sag. That's better. That's the kind of loot goblins I like better. Speaking of which, my loot filter is terrible. Don't be so lazy like me and make a proper filter for MF. Wrong one. At least there won't be comments that I'm too lucky. Oh no, there will be comments. I'm sure there will be, right? I guess this is a good time to talk about the luck aspect of Magic Find. Many of you might think that after they make an MF character, they are going to get rained out of divine orbs, especially after seeing highlights like this. But unfortunately, this is not the case, and for example, before I found my first brother's gift, I completed about 30 maps without any valuable loot. Sadly, I don't have a magic pill to help you consistently find valuable loot. But I can give you 2 tips. Be patient, you'll definitely need it, because there are good days and bad days. And also don't get too upset, it's just a game. But enough of this ranting, and let's see what I get after 100 maps. Excellence shows 26.5 divine orbs. And as always, I only take into account more or less valuable loot and what can be quickly sold, without all unnecessary junk. Also, Excellence doesn't take into account some of the valuable items I found, so the real output there is 28 divine orbs. I spent almost 6.5 divine orbs and 7 hours on 100 maps, which gives us a little more than 3 divine orbs per hour. Actually, almost the same result as the first time. Not the most outstanding numbers, but good enough for entry level. Well, that's just a bit of numbers and statistics, maybe it will be useful to someone. Also, I recommend the cemetery instead of the Crimson Temple because this map is more stable in my opinion. Of course, if you want to have a dopamine burst, then the Crimson Temple would be a better choice for you. I also started collecting stats on Juice T11 Cemetery with a slightly modified Atlas strategy and expensive scarabs and sextants, where each map costs about 130 Chaos Orbs. Preliminary, that's 5 to 6 Divine Orbs per hour. And it's already a relatively good income. But about this I will talk in more detail in the next video, when I have more data. Tier 11 maps are certainly good, but what about Tier 15 or 16, you may ask? In the current version of this build it can do high-level maps, although to tell the truth it doesn't do it very effectively because we spend more time on one map, and we will also die occasionally. Well, since I want to be as honest as possible with you and show you the real picture, I don't recommend switching to T16 maps just yet. Also, I remind you that this is still an entry-level MF with a small budget, and it would be very strange if this build could easily handle high-level maps as well as builds for over 100 divine orbs. For better MF on these types of maps we need to improve our gear, and that's what we'll do in my next video. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the second part of this video series. Also, I will be very grateful to you for likes, comments, criticism, tips, suggestions, and subscriptions, of course. Bye everyone, and see you in new videos.